sun was shining today, so a big round of applause that you made it out and got away from your garden. So round of applause to yourself and super happy to be here. I can't keep count of how many sales confidences we've run now, but the Sales Leaders event is the flagship event of the sales confidence community, and I appreciate everybody making an effort to come out here tonight. Just so I can get an idea of newbies, who's here for the first time this evening? If you can just pick a hand up. Can everybody give a clap to the newbies and give them a good welcome, please? Let's welcome the newbies, and hopefully you'll come back again and enjoy this evening. So just to give you an idea of how this works, you obviously figured out the first part, which was consuming alcohol. Good job. There'll be more after this event, so don't worry. We do close the bar off during the event because we want you to focus your full attention on all our wonderful speakers that have put a lot of effort and preparation into this. Now, for those of you that are, I want to get this right, so please don't fire me if I get this wrong. Big on diversity and inclusion, you will notice tonight that it is an all-men entourage, and that's because one of our speakers, Lucy Heather, got stuck in South Africa today. So we did make sure we had a female speaker, and I want to say to any of the women, female leaders in the room, if you think you should be speaking up on this stage at some point, do come talk to me, because we'd love to see more females represented at Sales Confidence. We do our best. It's not easy to get speakers together. Some are last-minute jobs, Andy? But we do our best to get them in the room. So the format of this evening, each speaker gets 7 minutes. That's just enough time for them to give you practical insight, and if they're really boring, you can get to the next speaker. So 7 minutes is all they get, and it's enough time to put on a good show for you. After the 7-minute speakers, there's then a panel discussion where you can ask questions of the audience. So save your questions to the end, please. I'm really proud, so if you're not aware, my name's James Ski, and my co-host this evening is Owen Richards, who is the founder and CEO of Air Marketing, and he's come up all the way on his bicycle from Exeter. So, you know, if he gets a bit intimidated by all your chatter, that's just because he's from Exeter, don't worry about the rest. Owen, what was I going to say after that?
I don't care anymore. Genuinely don't care.
Okay, so Owen and I are going to split the co-hosting role and introduce the speakers. I'll ask Owen to say a few words in a minute. But first up, I'd like to introduce one of our new partners. So this community doesn't exist without sponsors and partners, as you're well aware, because they call you all after the event. But it wouldn't exist, and the alcohol bar wouldn't be so high if we didn't have them. So I am grateful to our partners, and I wanted to introduce one new partner this evening. That's called Oxano, which is Greek for to grow. And I'd like to invite their founder up. So Charles Tristram, if you just want to come up to the stage, round of applause, please.
Thank you, James.
So Charles, just to introduce yourself to the audience. One of the things I'm really sensitive about is getting the right crowd and getting the right people in the room. So I do have a little look before the event and end up removing a few people, and often those people are recruiters. Yeah, I know, right? We're not a massive fan of recruiters in SaaS.
I'm a recruiter.
Yeah, we need to love them. How many people right now are hiring? Pretty much everyone, right? So everyone should be aware that we've got the #1 SDR recruitment in the house. So that is the Benetrix team. Shout out to Benetrix, where are you? Thank you, ladies. So one of the things over the last few years, I've been trying to think about a structure where you get the partners that you need to build your sales stack and your service providers. So that's why we've got Air for outsourced sales and marketing, and we've got a number of service providers like SalesWorks that provide ongoing training and coaching. So one of the things I've been missing is having a partner that can help with the go-to-market recruitment of AEs and senior leaders. So I'm really glad that we've now got a partner in Charles Tristram. So Charles, do you just want to introduce yourself and say a few words?
God, I'm nervous after that, guys, I'm sorry. Yeah, look, great to be here. First of all, great to have my logo amongst so many great vendors as well. So first and foremost, thank you to all of the sponsors that kind of make this happen, and for the attendees and the speakers as well, guys. In terms of me, look, I'm a humble dad of 2. You know, spend a lot of my time watching rugby. Go Chiefs! And you know, one of the things that I've always done is recruitment since graduating, and that's one of the big focuses. We help land go-to-market teams here in EMEA, and that's typically what we do. But guys, don't worry, I'm not going to try and talk to you all about getting vacancies today.
Charles? Thanks for having me. Cheers. Okay, so we're going to invite our first speaker up. They get 7 minutes. You've got the role. Please do take photos and share on social media. It's all good for promotion. So Owen, over to you.
Yeah, I'm only disappointed that you came and stood next to me and showed everyone how much taller than me you are. I was trying to stay away from you. You put me on the mic that doesn't go anywhere. So excited to have this. Spent the whole night avoiding him, and there you go. Excited to have our first speaker up. We've got a really good lineup of speakers actually. Not that it's not good on other days, but it is very good today. So we've got Tom Lavery up, who's the CEO and founder of Jiminny, a brand and a company that I've admired for a long time. He's going to be talking about, his talk title is the 4-point plan to create a high-performance team. Tom, having spent 8 years heading up sales at Reward Gateway, founded Jiminny in 2016 to help sales teams reach their full potential. Jiminny is a customer success platform that is designed to analyse your team's performance and to help them succeed. So without further ado, Jane, I think you've got the microphone, you might want to give him the mic, he's got one. Please could you welcome Tom to the stage. Thanks, Tom.
Cool, thanks James. It's awesome to be here tonight, guys. It's great to see people live in person. We're really honoured to be a sponsor of Sales Confidence and be here tonight. I must admit, guys, I'm probably a little bit nervous. I can't remember the last time I stood up in front of people on a stage, not on Zoom or Teams or something like that, and actually talk to human beings. But nevertheless, I'm really excited to talk to you about our talk today. So. This is something that's really close to my heart personally, is how to coach at scale. And what we wanted to do today was give you all the sales leaders and revenue leaders something tangible that you could take away and apply back to your business. So, before we go into that, guys, I want to just talk about what's the opportunity cost of not coaching in your business, and what's the opportunity cost of not creating a high-performance culture these days. We talked about recruiting and getting people in, but there's lots of stats out there that I think we're still making the same mistakes, sort of 10, 15 years later. I've probably been selling for a long time. I'm probably look a little bit younger than you think. A bit Botox helps with that. But I just wanted to share some of these stats I actually think is amazing. But in sales, and particularly in SaaS, we're still seeing 3 times the turnover of a sales team. And I think, and that comes back to salespeople being bored and thinking they know how to do their job. And we'll come on to that a little bit later. And I was amazed when I saw this the other day. I did a bit of research before the talk, really understanding that 35% of account executives are still missing quota on a regular basis, which is leaving a lot of revenue on the table. And this is more of a business thing, guys, but if you have a failed sales or revenue leader in your business, it often costs his business 3.5 million. And these are just really amazing stats to show if you're not doing something different and you're not applying it a different way, then you're missing a big trick. And I think, we all use, I was talking to Andy earlier out there, we all use lots of apps and tech, and Jiminny is an application that people can use, but technology will only take you so far. It's the things you do around it that will actually have the impact, I'm sure, put your hand up, guys, if you've implemented technology, CRM, marketing system, database, whatever, yeah? Most people. If you implement a Salesforce, the next month, do you have an awesome sales motion? You don't. If you implement HubSpot, the next quarter, do you have a marketing machine? You don't. And the same goes for coaching, training, developing your team. And that's what we're really here to talk about today. So I'm going to talk you through 4 simple steps I think are really important you can take away. So step number 1 for me is you can do this in a very manual way, you can do it with a flashy tool, but ultimately you need to see these days the good, the bad and the ugly across your whole function, SDR, AE, CS, video, voice, email. You need to have the full picture. You can't just join one call 1 month or listen to something anecdotally or whatever. You need to be able to see the full picture. And once you can see the full picture, that is the first step to being able to make a difference and to coach at scale. So, once you've done that and you're capturing every bit of data possible, the next important thing is to create a framework. And for me, this is often where it goes wrong. And this is where people start to miss a trick. So you might call it different things in your business. You might call it qualification, discovery, demo, presentation, whatever. But for each one of those steps, you need to have a framework. If you want to coach a team, you have to be able to train in a way of working first, and that's really important. So it might feel overwhelming, but you only have to start with one step in the sales process, or one step to start. But making sure that for each step in your sales process, you have a framework that your team can push through is really important. So that's step number 2. And then once you've captured everything, and you have a framework for each step in your sales process, you need to really work hard at applying that. This is public information. You can go to help.jiminny.com and you can see this information here. And I wanted to give you an example of it today of kind of how you can apply that framework ultimately. So I picked a discovery call. 99% of our customers would start there. Why? Because that's where you win or lose the deal. That's where the opportunity is created, and that creates the quality of your pipeline or your funnel or anything like that. So the way that we break it down is you have a module, you have a goal, you have coaching areas within that within those goals, and then you have notes and you're able to score it. And I'll just give you an example here. So when we look at a module, we look at relationship building, we look at business conversation, we look at product overview, we look at closing. So they're very broad things, but if you do those things really well, you know you're going to have a world-class discovery call and you're going to give the customer a great experience ultimately, which is really, really important. And each one of them will have a goal, and each one of them will have areas that you want to work on and improve, so you can see that over time. So the 4th step is once you're capturing everything, once you have a framework for each step in your sales process, once you are then breaking that down and able to train it in, is measuring it over time. And this is where I really want to link it to the high performance piece. So you see this rep, you can see here from the modules, relationship building, business conversation, product overview, closing, you can see that she is really strong at relationship building. You can see where she's been coached each week, but you can see where she needs to work on product overview. So she knows that, her manager knows that, the business knows that, the person who comes in after the manager leaves can pick that back up. You know, and that's the thing about consistency. And I think, how many of you, I've been an SDR, I've been an AE, I've managed sales teams, people get into a cycle of, I know how to do my job, I know how to sell, I know how to hit my target. And that's the difference. People need to understand their strengths, they need to understand their weaknesses, they need to understand where they need to improve. And if you're doing that within your business, you're creating a culture where everyone is striving to get better. Everyone knows each week or each month, I don't have all the answers. Everyone probably, James probably knows, I'm a big football fan. Harry Kane goes and scores 2 goals. He goes and looks at the 3 he misses. Yeah? He doesn't just say, I scored 2, I'm done this week. Right? It's as simple as that. And too many times in business we don't apply the same methodology of like, how am I going to get better? How am I going to improve? People talk about a growth mindset. You hear that word on social media, I've got a growth mindset. Yeah, but do it. Yeah? Apply it to your business. That's really the important thing. So when we look at our customers, and this is really important, and we see this in the data, whether they are doing this themselves or the manager's doing it, reps that do this once a week consistently have a 5% higher close rate. 5% higher close rate is a lot more revenue, as you could probably imagine, for your teams. It has a huge impact, and it's those marginal gains. People talk about it in sports, cycling, whatever. How am I getting that 1, 2, 3, 4% more out of my team every single time? So if I'm going to kind of leave you with everything, I don't know how I'm doing for time, James, but you know, capturing the voice of the customer is really important. So you've got true visibility. Having a framework for each step, something that you can train in, because if you can train it, you can then coach. Then applying that, you know, to a methodology that suits your business, your vertical, to what you do, and then being able to measure that over time and see the success, you know. And that's what really helps you create a high performance culture and hopefully a winning team. So thank you guys.
We're just going to get the mic handed over. Just to raise a hand, so how many people have a call intelligence software or records their sales calls? Hands up. There's plenty of business to be won in here. Okay, so next up we've got Anup, who's General Manager currently at Attentive. There's some individuals that I am keeping track of for years to try and get to speak, and Anup wasn't one of them. Because he's always asking me to speak, and finally we had an opportunity, and I'm happy and proud that he's here. We're going to be talking about building a successful business outside of HQ, and having a focus and getting stakeholder buy-in and hiring the right talent, which we've already touched on this evening. Just a bit of background, after studying to become a computer engineer, Anup decided his passion was in sales, and since making the decision to pursue a career in sales, he's now got over 20 years experience in a number of high-performing SaaS companies. Right now he's using a data-driven approach across people, process and product, and he's built a predictable revenue machine in the organisations he's been part of. And this approach, combined with his ability to hire, coach and scale, has enabled him to be part of 3 company exits, including the IPO at ExactTarget, which was acquired by Salesforce, and also Smart by Marlin Equity to form Halo. So really, really am happy, so excuse the jokes. I know you're a star. You've got 7 minutes, over to you.
Yeah, fuck you, James. Going back to the, I'm only here for the diversity part, right? So just saying. James, you just murdered my statement. So unlike Tom, who's the CEO, who you obviously had time to practice it without notes and build slides. I didn't, so I'm going to just read off some notes and hopefully it should be interesting for you. Hopefully it makes your time valuable and you get something from it. By means of introduction, my name is Anup. I am GM at Attentive. We are an SMS marketing platform based out of North America. My role is to kind of build out international markets, starting with EMEA and APAC. Just a quick question, just by show of hands, how many people here work for an organisation that has a HQ outside of the UK? Okay, that's great, good to know. Obviously Tom and I both swallowed the TED Talk 101 handbook, ask a question, get all this participation, make you look like you know what you're talking about. But hopefully you'll see that my topic today should resonate. So I've been attentive now for 2 months, and I know I've got 7 minutes to kind of share 20 years worth of learning, so I'm going to feel like a radio DJ and go very high level on a few key points, but I'm probably going to talk to you about just some steps that I've seen that helped me build good businesses over the years. But again, I've been there for 2 months now, and part of me joined, I had the opportunity to speak with a gentleman called Stephen McIntyre, and Stephen McIntyre is a general partner at Frontline Ventures. Super smart guy, and he was the individual that actually bought Google and Twitter to EMEA, right? So heavy hitter, knows his stuff. And we were kind of talking about growing businesses in this region, the kind of do's and don'ts. And he shared some good insight with me, and I think we should just probably, I don't think we think about this enough, but kind of said that we're all probably aware now that the first stop for US companies is Europe, right? And at IPO, or at a point of IPO, there's an expectation that 30% of revenue comes from this region. Now, the median ARR for companies that are IPOing at the moment is around $280 million. That means we, as leaders in this region, have an expectation to grow a business to 80 million. Right? That's a tough gig, right? Considering what, less than 1% of companies actually ever get to 100, and we're expected to get to 80. So, today I'm going to share a few of the learnings that I've had. I've been very fortunate to be part of some great companies and had some exits, as James read so eloquently off a bit of paper. Pretty solid there, James, thanks mate. And these learnings actually just come from trial and error. If I'm honest, I don't think I'm doing anything above and beyond anyone here, and all these have come from my own mistakes and learning. So there's a few that I'd like to share. The first one is, like, how do you make a business successful outside of HQ. And the big thing that I learned very quickly was to get executive buy-in. Okay. Actually, let me rephrase that. You already had exec buy-in because they hired, they gave a job. It's like, how do you keep exec buy-in? Because the CEO is busy, right? There's a number of people in that organisation every day that have got a new idea, want budget, and how do you position yourself to be front of mind? Because the moment you lose that, your job becomes really, really difficult. And I look at it like a marriage. It takes two of you to work, but it doesn't mean there's an equal amount of effort being put in. Right? I can speak from experience, not just here at work, but also in my personal life. Right? It takes one to do a little bit more. So the tip around that I learned really quickly to do was, okay, how do I tie in what's important to me, that's really important to my CEO, and likewise, not just my CEO, other departmental leaders, because you cannot do this job in this region alone. Like, we are literally on an island. It's not a metaphor, we're fucking on an island, right? Like, that's it. So it's tough. Like, you have to think of a way to do it. And at that point, what I clocked onto very quickly is OKRs. Okay? If I can tap in my goals and what I need to achieve into company OKRs, it stays front of mind and it becomes really, really important. And likewise, within your departmental leaders, whether it's solution engineers, whether it's SDRs, whether it's marketing, try and link what's important to you into one of their goals. The moment you do that, you're going to be set up for success. So that's the first thing that I learned. The second tip or learning that I could give, it sounds simple, and that's what it is, right? It's like, keep it simple. Okay? And that's from a strategy point of view and an execution point of view as well. It is so tempting when you come into an organisation, especially in EMEA, when you've got great HQ doing some amazing things, to think, we're going to do all of that straight off the bat. Like, it's taken them a long time to get there, right? And it doesn't mean that you're going to do it straight away with limited resource, limited budget. So, what I've been able to do over the years is try and do something well, but focus on one or two things and just try and master that. If you do that, you understand the motion, you understand what works, what doesn't work. Added benefit is, if you focus your AEs on just like, go and do this and go and do really well, like, the key to success is not being like amazing, it's repetition. Right? Repetition, you keep doing something over and over again, you become better. So you focus on one particular use case, you focus on one particular vertical, and then you end up doing it really well. So I think from a strategic standpoint, keep your focus and keep it simple. And likewise, from an execution standpoint, yes, look, you come into a region, they've built a great business, but the deck that they've got there, the way they pitch it, could be a bit American hurrah, doesn't often resonate. Okay? So when you have to tweak that, keep it simple. Ask yourself this question. I ask that myself all the time. Does this overcomplicate the process? If it overcomplicates it by a lot, then go back to the drawing board. Okay? Keep it simple. Allow yourself and your business to be easy to do business with. The third one's an interesting one, which would be to spend time on the things that matter, right? On things that move the needle. We're all busy in this room, right? And time is the commodity that all of us have the least amount of, especially when you're building a new business in a new region. I actually got into a habit of now looking at my diary on a regular basis and declining as many meetings as possible. And that sounds mental. Actually, by the way, just as an FYI, not client meetings or prospect meetings, internal meetings, right? Go, ask yourself the question, am I getting value from this? Could I read an email afterwards and get the same insight or a few slides? If you can, do you need to be there? And when you're building a new region, you can't afford to be just kind of held back by the internal stuff. Me, where I like to spend my time, when I do, is with my people, right? In front of customers, in front of prospects, like coaching, training, understanding the market. I think that's really, really key. And the byproduct of that, actually, when you do spend time with your people, especially if you're hiring and you've got new people in the region, is you start to build trust, right? And you start to build a culture. Because my personal ethos is that if you look after your people, they will look after the number anyway. To spend time with the people that matter. Yes, you've got a load of people at HQ, but at the end of the day, if you're not successful, it's your neck on the line. And 68% of leaders failed in the first 18 months. And we've all heard of the first leader that comes into region and it doesn't work. I'm hoping that doesn't happen right now. And the next point I'd like to talk about is probably data and metrics. We have a lot of it these days, right? We're always talking to our customers about, oh, look at that data you have on your consumers and how can you use it. Data can be scary, but you have an advantage when you have data and you are a new entity, in effect. Because if you were starting from scratch, you wouldn't know what good looked like. But they've worked out what good looks like. Right? Back in the US, they've worked out, they've been selling that motion industry, you know. So use that as a benchmark, right, to get a handle on your business. And whilst you've got so many different things you could look into, I would kind of say, yes, you have your obvious metrics, obviously your pipeline, your ARR, we all know that we're not going to survive if you don't keep an eye on that, but pick one or two that really make a difference. Now, one I'd like to share that I work on and have actually used as a big measure is what I call sales efficiency per AE. It allows me to focus on the right areas to improve performance. And in effect, it's, well, I'm not taking full credit for this, I've got our sales ops team to build this out, so I'm not a big genius, but it looks at the kind of average conversion per lead source, what that lead source would equate to in ARR, and combines it by conversion rates by tier. And in effect, the TLDR, too long don't read, is it spits out a number. And it's 1, like, is the benchmark above or below. If you're above 1, what does that tell me of my AEs? It tells me that my AEs, if they get an opportunity, will close it, or doing a good job. So if I have an AE that's above 1 on their sales efficiency, but it's not hitting target, it tells me I have a pipeline problem. So I know where to focus my time. On the flip side, if I've got an AE that's below 1, then I know it's a coaching issue, right? It's not a pipeline, I need to spend time on those individuals to kind of bring them up to speed and understand their gaps. The last one I kind of leave you with is that it's a tough job what we do, right? And we can run at 1,000,000 miles per hour. I have to consciously make time to kind of just stop and reflect on the areas of my, like, just stop and reflect on what's working and what's not working. Like, you can end up just going 1,000,000 miles per hour and not being able to evaluate, and more importantly, not being able to evaluate, but be able to course correct. So take the time. So for me, just to kind of recap, the things I'll talk about is keep executive buy-in, keep it simple where possible, spend time on the things that move the needle, focus on some metrics that matter, and don't overload yourself on that data, and don't forget time to stop, reflect, and course correct. So hopefully you've got something from that. If not, tough, I've done my 7 minutes. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Luke. Now I know why you declined that meeting request earlier today. Thanks very much. All that's clarified. And also, we rolled out the red carpet because normally we read the notes from our phones. So the fact that we printed the notes off on a piece of paper is probably 21st century. So thank you, Dave, for that. Next up, we have Mike Hann, as you can see. He is the Executive Vice President of Revenue at Fabric. I'm looking forward to this. When he told me what he was going to be talking about earlier in the week, I genuinely, nearly fell off my chair. So his title is Scaling Through Series ABC Easy as 1, 2, 3. Very good title. This is the bit I can't believe. Having achieved Series A, Series B, and Series C's funding in the last 13 months. Mike will be walking us through some of his key tips. So if you plan to raise Series A, B, and C in the next 13 months, you're in the right place. Mike joined Fabric in his current role in February of 2021. Before this, he made the Forbes 30 Under 30 list in the retail and e-commerce category, while growing POP and app commerce company. And previously, he was the e-commerce consultant at Channel Advisor and the head of e-commerce at Xerox as well. So Mike, do you want to head on up to the stage? Ready for your 7 minutes? Welcome back to the stage.
Hello? There we go. Thanks for taking the good microphones, guys. Appreciate it. So yeah, great to be here. I've hoped to speak at Sales Confidence for quite some time, but it's amazing to be back in a room with so many people. And I just want to start by saying, if you are looking to raise Series A, B, and C in 13 months, don't. So I'm going to take you through some of the learnings that I've had, some of the mistakes I've made. I'm continuing the Jackson 5 theme and doing 5 tips or 5 mistakes that I've made. Some of them shouldn't be new, but should be good reminders to you, and hopefully you can take something as you scale your current company. So just to level set with kind of a bit of context, so we've raised just shy of 300 million in the last 13 months and added about 300 employees, backed by Silicon Valley investors. So it's been like a crazy growth story. Company's valued at $1.5 billion today. So hopefully there's a lot of learnings from that. And a quick disclaimer, because we're now a Series C company, these views are mine and are not Fabric's views or experiences. Yeah, so you get legal at Series C, that's fun. Awesome, so let's dive straight into this. So tip number 1 is really to act stage appropriate. So what I mean by this is my role personally and my team's roles were very different at Series A, Series B, Series C. And I think a lot of times you might start a new role or like join a new company, and you might think you want to behave in a certain way based on where you were or what you think you're capable of. And a good example is I spent 8 years scaling a company before I joined Fabric. I thought I knew everything. I thought I was coming in to be like, a board level executive and spend all of my time on strategy. And I got a very rude awakening that, we're very hands-on. I had 1 AE and 1 SDR when I joined the company last February. So I think the big learning from me there is just make sure you are in the weeds if you need to be, and take your executive team, whoever you report to, whether that's the CEO or somebody else, take them on that journey with you. And one thing I'd strongly recommend is aligning your comp with the goals of the company. So I think the challenge a lot of us have is a lot of us have a great options package, and we're like bought into this like SaaS journey of like VC backed and my options will be worth a fortune in the future. It takes us 4 years on average to get these options, but the average tenure for a sales leader in SaaS is 17 months. So the economics don't make sense. So I think play that to your advantage, and if you align with your leader on what you need to do at A, B or C, or this year, next year, align heavy comp with hitting those KPIs versus just aligning on your options or like your typical OTE. That was tip 1. Tip 2, get mentors. So this is somewhat contradictory to the previous point, but I think this is like, and I was speaking to Andy about this earlier, it's almost like spotting what's around the corner. So if you are in the moment and living as a Series A sales leader or a Series C sales leader, how can you have a mentor who's a stage or 2 ahead of you so you know what you're getting into? So for me now, this is new territory for me in terms of raising 300 million, racing towards IPO at breakneck speed. So I'm trying to now connect with other revenue leaders at pre-IPO companies and work on like what's coming for me. What are these things going to be that are going to slap me in the face very soon? So even if I don't work on them straight away, I know what to expect and I know when I'm under pressure to pivot in that direction. So that's the kind of formal side of the mentorship. The informal side of the mentorship, and I'd really recommend this one, and this is such a great event to do it at, is to get a group of 3 or 4 people and start up a forum. So I have this with 3 other SaaS execs, and we speak every couple of weeks, and it's like a safe place to talk about all the shit that goes wrong in your organization. So you talk about, I've got no idea how to do a comp plan for such and such situation. We just acquired the company. I've got no idea how to bring on an acquisition. You might want to talk about firing someone or hiring someone. Anything like that, I think it's great to have a network there, because what you don't want to do necessarily is go to your board or your manager with some of these really challenging problems, especially when it's such a challenging world that we all live in, where, as I said, it's 17 months average tenure. So find a safe space, and tonight is a great format to meet some folks. 3rd tip, always be hiring. I don't know how I still don't know this. I've spent the last 12 years in SaaS. but I'm going to say it because everyone needs reminding on it. We done that classic thing of like every time you raise, you turn on the hiring taps, then you kind of turn them off a little bit. I think everybody needs to be in this constant mode of hiring, and my big advice would be to be really strict on criteria. So don't interview lots of people at all times, but just get super strict on the criteria. So for us, we've just hired like a ton of SDRs. We want to turn down the volume on that, but we still want to hire great candidates. So we've got our strictest criteria out to our select number of partners, and we can then just hire for diverse candidates. So that was really hard in another world where we would like onboard loads of people and then turn it off and then on again, because guess what, we suddenly had 10 young, white, 20-year-olds join us, and we can't build a diverse team there. And then when you turn it off, it's really hard to build a high-performance culture because you haven't got enough sales capacity to then swap in and out reps as they perform or not perform. And then the last point on this, and this is like a new learning for me, is I would often think like I've hired an amazing VP, and that person's going to take away all of this shit for me. So like, I won't get specific, but like we hired a role where I thought they could scale for the next couple of years and be like, one of my right-hand people. And that person, within a matter of 6 months, couldn't scale because of the rate our company's growing. And then it's just a challenge to then like try and find a new person, and you kind of lose 6 months there. So just always be hiring, and I've learned that time and time again. Number 4 is to build foundations really early. So if you have like some technology, for example, and it's not working for you, and you think, I'll replace that next year. And Tom mentioned earlier about like Salesforce, for example. That's a great one. I spoke to a CRO the other day who was running a similar stage company to us, and for him to move from HubSpot to Salesforce, he thinks it's an 18-month project to do that. And I think that's the kind of almost like technical debt you build up. And for us as sales leaders, sometimes you don't think of your job as like a project manager or like a mini CIO, but like we have to manage these toolkits and these like SaaS providers. So I think just think of it a little bit like you're a mini CIO within your sales toolkit. And if the tech's not going to scale, rip it out early and build the foundations that you need. So that was a big learning for us. We ripped out HubSpot really early, replaced it in 2 weeks. We put in a ton of tech and built out processes and expectations of how to use it really quickly. And that's been really effective for us. And then it gets scary, like we've now got like 12 different SaaS tools that we use, and then you suddenly need to hire someone to manage the tech you bought. So great problems to have. And then my final tip is to record everything. So I couldn't vouch enough for technologies like Jiminny and call recording software, because it's just going to enable you to scale that much easier as time goes on. One of the interesting things with like the journey that we've been on through A to C is in our early days, I was on the front line selling with the team. My CEO, my founder, was on the front line selling with the team. Then all of a sudden, it's your VPs. Then all of a sudden, the AEs are on their own with a sales engineer. And it's just like, that is so hard to go from the motion of founder-led sales and CEO-led sales through to a brand new AE trying to learn your product that, by the way, is not documented, has shitty sales enablement, has shitty onboarding experience. So really invest early in documenting everything, and nobody's going to be as good as your CEO or your founder at selling the product. So like, take some of these snippets early on and make sure they kind of fall through the organization as you scale. Because otherwise, your new reps that come in, doesn't matter where their CV, on their background, where they've come from, they're going to fail without having those snippets there. So build that early. And then the final point on recording everything is have a sales playbook that's always editable, and just constantly work with your peers or your sales leadership team on refining that as time goes on. So for us, we have this living and breathing document. It changes every single week. When there's a new process, when there's a new tool, when there's a new way to use Slack or a workflow, we'll put that into one central playbook, and everybody can follow that and adjust. And that's just made scaling so much easier for us. And I actually have a couple of slides in that deck. There's like my expectations of like what I expect from you, how I expect you should use tools, how I expect you should coach, etc. So we just try and be really transparent on what that is and flow that through the org. So that was my 7 minutes, 5 tips. So act stage appropriate, get mentors, always be hiring, build early foundations, and record everything. Was I on time? Yeah. Near enough. Oh, close.
Good. Yeah. Sorry. So our final speaker this evening, this is one that we have had lined up before, and now we've finally got you, which is great. So Andy is the General Manager of EMEA for Highspot. He leads the Europe, Middle Eastern and African operations. Prior to Highspot, Andy was most recently VP of Enterprise Sales for EMEA for DocuSign. While at DocuSign, he helped build out the go-to-market approach that delivered a 2.5x growth. Previous sales leadership roles include Oracle, Responsive, and Yext, where he helped lead a successful IPO. So let's have a round of applause for our final speaker, please.
Thank you very much. You've clearly been on my LinkedIn bio. It's almost like I wrote that myself. Good evening, everyone. I think I'm about all that stands between you and another drink. So I'm going to try and keep this on time, and I'm going to get Siri to help me. So what I'm going to talk to you about tonight is how to build a scalable revenue engine, how to drive consistency across your sales organization at scale. I missed the briefing for tonight. And it suddenly struck me as I looked at all these gentlemen that I'm the only guy without hair. I'm also kind of the only guy that doesn't have 5 tips. I've only got 1. But let's see how we go. I hope that it will be really, really helpful for you. And here's why it matters. Every single one of you is living in a really tough environment, and you don't need me to tell you that, but it's worth stopping and remembering that, right? Our buying processes have got more complex. We've gone into a pandemic. The behaviors that worked for our sales reps, for our SDRs prior to the pandemic, had to change. We all had to figure out how to sell over Zoom or Teams or whatever other tool you use. And we all had to figure out how to coach, and we've talked about the importance of coaching, and I would echo that. But we had to do it, again, in a virtual environment where we couldn't meet our people. And we certainly couldn't ride alongside them in a customer meeting. So we had to learn new tricks. And then just as we were starting to master it, guess what happens? The pandemic finishes. We've got to figure out how to reinvent ourselves all over again. And that's against the backdrop of the buying process becoming more complex. If you think it's hard for salespeople, try being a buyer. They have less time with more competitors that do by and large, struggle to differentiate than ever before. And they're probably, for larger enterprises at least, dealing with many more stakeholders in the journey. So it's really tough. And then the second challenge is, and we touched on this a little bit before, is the options for a salesperson, a good salesperson now, on where to take their career and where to go, are infinite. Quick show of hands again, how many people are hiring? How many people, keep your hands up a sec. How many of you have seen a market like this? Keep your hands up, ever? Yeah, there's not a single hand. I've been a few more trips around the sun than some people in here. Probably been doing this for about 25 years. I've never seen a market like it. It's incredibly hard to find talent, but what I hope to share with you in a minute is a tool to help keep that talent and extend that talent and that excellence across your organisation. So it's really hard. So what if I told you there was a way to reduce your ramp time by a quarter? And what if I told you there's a way to increase the number of your reps that are hitting target by about a fifth? How many would be interested? That's not many people. Am I in the right audience? These are sales leaders, right? Well, that's what I'm going to talk about. So if it's not of interest, exit left, bar is open. And you know, look, there's not one magic wand, there's not one magic way, but there is one proven way to do that. And that is a sales plan. And I'm going to talk to you and give you a very simple framework about how to build a sales plan. And really, this is about modeling the behaviors, the actions, the engagement of your best reps, building a blueprint or a recipe, and then giving it to the rest of your organization. Because as I'll sum up at the end, there's a bunch of people in the middle that are actually really cracking people. They're really smart, their heart's in the right place. But broadly, they just haven't figured out quite how to do it. They haven't quite cracked the nut. And if you can unlock that frozen middle, the uplift compared to if you spend more time with your top performers is very significant. It's about 80% more. It's huge. So unlocking that frozen middle. So what is the sales play? There are 4 key components. What to know, say, show, and do. The first one, this is all about confidence. This is all about when your reps go in front of a buying persona, they understand what that person cares about. They might understand more about their metrics, their KPIs, what keeps them awake at night. It helps break down jargon, and it helps build confidence going into the call, so when they go into that call, they can build the rapport, they can talk knowledgeably, and they can act like somebody that really does know what they're doing. And they can do that whether they're 1 month with the organisation or 10 months with the organisation. And the average rep, top rep, takes about 3 years to get to ultimate performance. So it is a journey. The next one is what to say. And really, you know, this is where calling technology can be very valuable. You can pull out snippets that model best behaviours about the messaging that is delivered. You can use snippets from Zoom and Teams to actually model the behaviours that you want to see. And again, it allows somebody to review just ahead of going into an important call or an important meeting, just to get that refresher training, to understand, you know, those top performers. How did they phrase that thing? I remember that, you know, that James said it like 6 months ago. If it's there in a place where it's accessible, I don't have to call this guy up when he's in a meeting. I can go and get it when I want. So help people understand what to model and what to say. What to show kind of builds on that, right? And this is where you can use your systems to track what content is resonating with your customers, what are they engaging with, and which pieces of those content, whether it's white papers, case studies, demo, whatever it might be, which of those are associated with driving revenue and driving up win rates. And again, you can start to, over time, evolve that content, right? You talk to any marketers in the room? Like what, 50% of your content works? You just don't know what 50%, right? Unless you're really smart and got technology. But, yeah. And other stats, scary stats, right? 90% of the content you produce is not adopted by reps. So, you know, you can start to address things like this. Yes. Exactly. Exactly. And then that feeds back to you to help you evolve your content to make it even more effective. Absolutely. So no, say, oh, my clicker didn't go, that's why you were all looking a bit blank. And then do, right? We've talked about systems and processes, we've talked about what follow-up action might be. Again, this is an area of opportunity. It could be internal face processing, or it could be external facing processing. You know, what white paper, what customers might you want to reference? How do you follow up to that? Know, say, show, do. Really simple framework, and it really makes a massive impact. Independent study across all of our customers, 19% more reps were achieving quota for those organizations that implemented sales plays. 19%. And then about a 25-24%, I think it is, decrease in the ramp time. These are really huge, these are really, really significant. So it really is, if you're not doing it, sales plays really are important to do. And guess what? Going back to what Tom was saying, they provide you a coaching rubric. So you can actually coach to this best practice and develop that over time. So these are my tips. I have actually. I've forgotten I had this slide though. Thank you for keeping me honest. Look, it's about how do you take this concept of sales plays and how do you bring it to life in your organisation. Whether you have technology or not, you can go and do some of these things today. Don't worry about having the full answer. Don't worry about having to have a sales play for everything. Just start somewhere. Keep it simple. Learn the muscle memory, a bit like going to the gym or running a marathon. You're not going to go out there and do 26.2 miles on day one, but you might go out and do a mile. And then the next week you might do a mile and a half. Build it up over time. And if any of you have any questions, if you want to go deeper, this is me. I'm not here to pitch you Highspot, but I'm happy to go deeper on any of the concepts that I've talked about tonight. How do I do, James?
Thank you, Andy. Can I get the speakers back up on the stage, if you wouldn't mind? We're going to do a quick questions from the audience, a couple of questions off the back into us. So if you wouldn't mind coming back up, that would be fantastic. Thank you. There's if you hand the worst boy band I ever saw. That's boys that have gone wrong. Yeah, the high notes, you're right. Okay, so quick question from me, guys. Firstly, thank you. On time, which I love, some really good points. And I like the crossover, we've got a good amount of crossover between the talks, and I think that kind of echoes the room right now, reiterates some of the really key points, particularly around data and around hiring. So all of you brought up people ramp time hiring. Andy, I think 44% of people planning to move this year, or looking right now. They always keep hiring point, all of these things. It's kind of been the elephant in the room, isn't it, for a long time? Everybody in the room's put their hand up when they're hiring. Just keen to get from each of you, just a quick couple of sentences on what are you doing that's differentiating you? What are you doing to make sure that you succeed in a market where it is hard to hire, yet we're all hiring? We might just go along if that's all right.
A good question. I really want to know what you like the impact of working on.
No? Yeah, I would. Good. I thought we were going to get away from talking about remote work and so on, but what we
started it.
Yeah, I know. That's something that we're doing, right? I think as a business we are going remote first. I think right now we're never going to go back. I think our philosophy as an organisation is people want that flexibility, so we allow it. And then we just offer like really good benefits, like whether it's £15 Uber Eats a day for lunch, £100 gym membership, all the stuff that's kind of good for another kind of organisation. So just saying, Uber Eats, yeah, we pay really good money.
We know how to get these guys happy.
The comp plan is really good, so just got loads of roles.
I love that. Uber Eats. £15 Uber Eats, thumbs up. £100 gym.
Highspot does that twice as well. Look, I think that culture is massively important, and it's not just in the sales environment, but the biggest determinant of somebody's desire to stay or go is their success, and the biggest influence on that is their manager. So creating that culture of coaching, empowering people to make smart decisions, and also, by the way, make mistakes, but then picking them back up, brushing them off, I think is hugely important. So for me, it's all about the culture and creating a culture of coaching as a benchmark. I'm not there yet personally, but I'm targeting myself to spend 20% of my time coaching my directs and my leadership team.
Spend 25%.
So I think this year I looked at it actually, and we started the year having really ambitious recruitment plans. So we hired an embedded talent partner to help us, even though we're small, just from another company on a temporary period. But we actually had a strategy for each role. So let's just take AEs. We know how long it takes to ramp or whatever. So we are shopping in a certain market, maybe not a Champions League budget, we're a bit below. So basically, we will take BDRs with 2-3 years experience, knowing that we can make them great, we can coach them, we can make them better. So instead of shopping in the same pool as everyone else, looking for A's that are overpriced, no offence, or whatever, like the market's going up, I'll take a BDR who's hungry, who wants to go to the next level, and we can coach and ramp. So we just have a strategy of like, where are we shopping and what are we looking for? And that was kind of how we've approached it. And I think we had like 10 people in Q1 or something like that.
Awesome. So for us, the biggest lever that we pulled is speed. So we don't want to get into a game of like competing over salary. We've done a big leveling project in the org, so people have specific levels for their roles, which have like certain salary bands. What we don't want is like one AE earning X amount and one earning X plus 50k. So we've tried to keep that really level, and then where we compete is the speed and experience in the interview process. So we try and be really, really fast through the funnel. I'm still interviewing everybody in the sales org, and we're doing that until we break. But it's been like really effective because people value the speed, the transparency, and the fact that they'll have like executive involvement in the company and have impact joining our startup versus just chasing a high salary.
300 people is a lot of interviews.
Not all 300.
I feel really sorry for you. Guys, if you've got a question for the audience, pop your hand up. Got a couple more, but if anyone wants to ask one, going once. It's a bit like bingo, isn't it? Oh, there's one on the back there. Can't stand up, would you mind?
Yeah,
thank you.
I think that's the one question every time. Yeah, basically all of you had a common thread where you kind of talked about how to have a changed mindset and push the business in the right direction, top down. If you're at the bottom looking up, how do you get those people there who have ideas and want to help with the changed mindset, convince those higher up who don't have it that they should have it? Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Anybody want to go first? I'm being generous, I'm just offering,
So I talked about sales plays, and the place to start when you're thinking about sales plays is with those individual contributors. They're the ones that are out there, as you say, figuring it out. And your top performers, by definition, have figured something out. Our job as leaders is then to understand that and then bring that back into our strategy and then amplify that to give our people that haven't quite yet figured it out that recipe, that blueprint, right? I could put all of you in a kitchen and say, go make a loaf of bread. And some of you might be successful and some of you would not even know what ingredients to use. But if I put the ingredients out and I give you a recipe and I show you and tell you how long to prove stuff for, and I give you the temperature to put in the oven, I bet 99%, other than James, would probably make a great loaf, right? So it is about hiring, in Steve Jobs' words, it's about hiring really smart people and getting them to tell us what to do. And in the context of the sales play, I think that's where you really can give your people their wings and their voice, and where you can help amplify the pride that they have in the work that they do.
Guys, I'm conscious of time. If anyone wants to add anything, but don't feel we have to go on everybody for every answer.
Okay, just a really quick nugget from me is we have a mantra internally of like not bringing problems to peers or leaders and bringing solutions, and that's like, and then when we give people the authority to make change and bring solutions to the table, it doesn't feel like top down at all.
So I'm keen to just touch on data for a minute. Andy, you brought quite a lot of data there, particularly around ramp time and people looking for jobs and that kind of stuff. Mike talked about recording everything. Nick, you talked about the sort of data and metrics and the simplicity of it, and you showed some slides, Tom, around measuring coaching, and it's the first time I've seen like that tangible measurement of coaching short term rather than the long term. I'm keen to understand from each of you, like, what's one piece of data you could not do without? God, that's a testing question, isn't it? Jeez, that'll be an easy one.
What, like one data point or one?
Just one thing that you know you turn to regularly, that you live by, that drives your decision making across the business.
I'll answer it from a different perspective of the other question. We did this a little while ago. We started doing employee NPS.
Yeah.
But I just think that's really valuable because then you know how your employees feel. They feel they can give you feedback. So like EMPS, in a tool. And I think that's really valuable for me. This goes back to what the guys say, you're only as good as your people and how motivated those people to do a great job. So I think that's one bit of data that we've introduced this year that I think is just hugely valuable. At a very high level. But,
And at a time when retention is so critical, also. Yours? We can move on if you like.
I think just from my point, I mentioned it before, it's sales efficiency per IE or per CSM, so that spits out a number, whether it's new business AE. Likewise, we have the same sort of mechanics and algorithm work behind account managers, stroke CSMs, what they're called in your organisation, where it looks at like retention rates of clients. That one number just really helps us to identify like where they're tracking, but likewise where we need to kind of plug the gap if we need to.
Nice. We've got time for a couple more questions, guys. Anybody out there?
I'll take one.
Go for it.
Evening. Great talks on Ben Enterprise at Adobe. If you take a step back in your careers and you were going to leadership again, to replay again, would you that startup, scale up, with corporate, and why?
Is an option, don't do it.
There is that option.
Start that boy band.
I'll start. You know, I think there's benefits to being in every type of organisation, right? Like the corporate will give you, it's like when you're hiring, right? You look for me personally, I look for that blend. So am I looking for someone that's been at a large organisation where they've had good processes, they get structure? Likewise, do I want, like, could you be seen as an order taker? No offence, I know you're Adobe. Likewise, I don't mean that, no, let's go Right, that sounded really bad.
I wish it was that easy.
But likewise, if you have, I'm only joking, Ben.
Don't invite him back.
Likewise, if you've gone to a startup, right, you have to wear so many hats, right? You don't get the support, you don't get the marketing machine behind you. So, in an ideal world, and I think I could pick one particular place, I think throughout your career, I think you're going to benefit long term for having a touch point in each. That makes sense.
I don't think there's a single answer to that. I think there are as many answers as there are people, and that sounds like I'm avoiding the question. I'm not. What I would say is, you really sit down and think about what do you enjoy doing, and what are you prepared? What shit are you prepared to put up with? Because depending on where you start, you know that each of those gives you a different mix of things. One thing I've come to learn a little bit late in my career, probably. About myself is I enjoy the scale up because I enjoy a degree of ambiguity. I certainly enjoy being hands on, but I don't want to be running around doing the stuff that Series A, Series B does. I'm not good at that. But equally, I don't want to be spending all my time in very large organisations that have already figured everything out, because that doesn't give me any creativity and freedom. And so for me, it's all about scale up, but that's just me, and that's just what I know I like. So were I to talk to myself 25 years ago, I'd sit down and really dig into what I want from my career, and then I think that would shape my decision about what stage I go up.
Tom?
Okay. Yeah, I think if you talk about like SaaS generally, it's probably like just over 10 years old because it's been coined. I think it goes down to this point. It's really hard to give advice, but I think you've got to, you find a space where you're comfortable. So, you know, people are like, am I pre-seed, am I seed, am I, like, people talking rounds. But I think you've got to find, do I feel comfortable in an established business, do I feel comfortable in a startup? You know, what suits my skill set? You know, do I like the detail, do I like it all figured out, or do I like to go work it out? I think it's very similar. But I think it's about finding your place. And that's what people have to do. Sometimes you have to make mistakes and you have to get bumps and bruises to go and find where your place is. Like, I think the biggest company I've ever worked in is like 300-400, and I found like that was fucking too much red tape. You know, like people tell me what to do and tell me I can't do things and make decisions quick. Okay, it's a nightmare, but yeah, so I think everyone's different. And, but yeah, it's about finding your place for sure.
So Mike, you might not have realised that he's even gone from A to B to C. It's happened that quickly.
Yeah, and it is very different. So I agree with these guys. It's a personal thing, and I view it as: do you like building and taking nothing to something, or do you like taking something and like turning that into something great? And I think they're like really two different disciplines of the building versus the operating. I think both are really valuable, and like if you're looking for like a career in general sales leadership, I think the answer probably becomes both. If you will learn different things, like you can see the full shape of a business at a startup, but equally you're going to learn how to operate a lot better at a scale up or an established company. So yeah, bit of a cheat answer of both, but it's really a personal decision of where you want to go.
Good question. One more. We've got time for one more. Last one. Thank you.
It was mentioned earlier it's best to switch out tech that isn't working, quite early on. My question is, what tech or what apps or tools would you say are the most valuable within the sales team at that early startup stage?
Tom, Jiminny?
There's probably 4 or 5 things for on top of the CRM you need, like the guy said earlier. You just got to keep it simple and keep it focused. So, you've got to make sure that your intelligence is right for leads. You obviously got your core, which is your CRM. You're then able to do like sales engagement tools as well. You've got to be able to go out, depending on how much outbound, inbound, and then like you're saying, you've got to record and capture everything at the same time. So this is probably a baseline of 5 or 6 tools that you can probably get away with for a long time before you go in bells and whistles and everything. But yeah, I think you've got to just make sure you have those basics.
There's one thing I'd add to that, and it's not tech, it's data, right? Understand your total addressable market, understand your ideal customer profile, and be, certainly the earlier you are, be very disciplined about not getting distracted outside of that. It's incredibly easy to do. It's bright and shiny. It's the deal. It's the deal that's going to grow the company. Yeah, except it's not on our ICP, and it's going to require a load of development and this and that. That stuff will kill you. So be very, very focused about where you and your people spend their time. And I think data, TAM, ICP is critical, because data will only amplify errors that you make in that foundation.
I'd probably just take a slightly different approach to one thing I would look at would probably be, if you're early stage, right, it's tough, you've got so many things you're doing, there's probably limited resource and time. I would look at the tools from an adoption standpoint. Okay, so you have lots of tools, but if you have lots of tools and they're not being utilised, what's the point? Focus on the 1 or 2 tools that are going to get good adoption. Give your teams a reason to adopt them by giving them a clear value add of what that tool actually brings to them, what that tool would bring to their performance, and then kind of refine and go from there.
And just to finish off, I think Series A is the hardest time for tools. I think it becomes a lot easier after you've got that foundation in place, where you can go tactically and just add different things. So over time you'll add forecasting and analytics and other tools, but A is a tough time. And I think you have to play 2 roles typically. So A, you found some kind of repeatability and repeatable motion that you want to continue and have that eye on going forward. But equally, you also want to play, as I said, act in the stage you're in. And A is high growth, fuck it, let's win loads of business. So I would say it's a combination of getting the foundation in place and getting the discipline of using CRM and all of the essential tools and building out a good process there. But equally, on the acquisition side, how can you double down on making sure you've got loads of data? How can you be really great at automation, really efficient at smashing out emails, all of that good stuff? I would optimize for the acquisition, but make sure you're paying attention to process and scale and foundation.
Guys, I'm sure you agree, a lot of fantastic insight from our speakers. Mike, Andy, Anup, Tom, thank you very much.